We're talking about the newest movie from Dev Patel that people were raving out of South by. That people were saying, yo, this man broke so many parts of his body and he was still out there fighting. He might be one of the hottest actors that we have out there making his directorial debut. Dev Patel in Monkey Man is pretty crazy. This man is making something that is, I wouldn't say too different from what we've gotten, but I think the approach that he takes is more story-centric than it is action. I think that was where I was surprised, and I think maybe because you came out of it really hyped up, and Amanda was talking about, like, there was a lot of story elements, and she thought it was going to be more action, they all leveled me out for it, and I heard even some people comparing it to The Raid 2, a movie that has a lot of action, but it'll stop for 30 minutes to tell you a story that's happening in the underground. I like the story in this one. I almost like the story a little bit more than I like the action.
Really? Interesting. Yeah, I mean, bit. Like... Yeah, look, it's got this really interesting element where it is kind of grounded in sort of like the sociopolitical issues of modern day India, even if it isn't necessarily like explicit about like Modi or the Hindu Nationalist Party or anything like that. But it feels like a parable, right? The way that these people are all like representative figures for authoritarian governments or, police forces or God even. And I think on that level, there is something really cool and kind of like epic to the way that Dev Patel handles the story in Monkey Man. Like it almost separates it from being about like this guy fighting his way up through the classes and makes it more about like this sort of like ordained fighter who is imbued with like this religious spirit to vanquish the evil from society. You know what I mean? Even though it is just this story of this guy.
Like you're saying, it serves as he's like a messiah figure to help these people who have been used and abused, and especially the way that they like explore his story. You get to see more behind the scenes of how India is run a little bit. I do think the more you know about India, the more you may understand it. But then, like you were saying, there's a lot of political elements to it where a lot of people have come out of it going, this is a little too close for comfort. And interestingly enough, since we will be having a Civil War discussion later, it's always the homegrown. I don't see a lot of American people complaining about that. They're just like, what am I supposed to, am I saying the correct thing? It's Civil War where it's only the Americans complaining, not anybody outside of America. So I'm curious on that end where you were bringing up the changes, as we had heard. And I'll try to pull it up over here as well.
I got
that
it.
There were some trailers where Monkey Man had specific colors. And then they changed the colors. But I ask you, Zach, if you had a liberal or a MAGA person here in an American movie, and you were like, let's change the red MAGA hat to blue. How does that change anything in the character?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I see like the inclination that people have to be like, oh, this is like cowarding to political pressure. But ultimately, like these are sort of meant to be representative anyway. Like he's not literally talking or he might be like inferring to, but it's not literally the story of these real world figures. Right. And I think similarly to the way that there's this kind of like, there was this freak out about the Seth Rogen North Korea comedy, The Interview, and then people saw it and like everything is really just benign and stupid in it. Like there's this like, I think there's this sort of like worry that there's going to be this massive reaction to sort of like vaguely alluding to something in a movie when really it's much more broad than that. It's not specific in the things that it's condemning. It is more of like a kind of like parable, as we were saying, and like something that's more of like a moralistic tale than something that's about the actual history that happened.
We used to get these movies all the time.
Right.
And that's why they've lasted the test of time. Because people don't realize that they're trying to argue about these movies going, they don't get this time period that we're in. No, you're letting your time period and your idea of the world ruin the movies we're getting. A lot of people, you just mentioned a perfect example. The Interview was 10-ish years ago. Y'all look goofy. Do not look goofy now. complaining about these movies that are coming out for 10 years down the line, going like, oh yeah, I guess it's a different time. Scorsese, I'm gonna bring it up later for the Civil War, but Scorsese gave a great point when they asked him if his newest movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, was important, and he said, that's ridiculous. It's not about the timing of the movie and whether it's important now. It should have been important if I released it years ago or if I release it in the future. If I release it now and we fix, whatever problems with indigenous people, that doesn't make it not important afterwards. And that's the problem, is that people are using a lot of these movies as like propaganda pieces. And you can tell that they're not thinking thoroughly because, again, if you were to change the colors, it's not changing what it's saying about the opposition. So it doesn't matter where it goes. Like, at the end of the day, the color switch is almost like a Trojan horse. They were saying that the reason it had happened was Netflix had this movie, and they know that they have a lot of deals with India, and India was like, you're treading down certain waters with their we want that cut.
We haven't been specific enough about it yet. What we're talking about is that in the initial trailers released for Monkey Man, some of the protest signs were colored red, and in the ultimate release they were changed to I believe they were colored orange, which is the same color as the Hindu Nationalist Party in India, and then ultimately they were changed to a more red color for the release, which is more like the traditional Communist Party colors.
And again, changing a color, I don't think changes the character that they've created.
No, not at all.
So if all India is asking is to change that color, and you get to Trojan horse and sneak in a movie that's calling out the BS, bruh, if you're complaining against that, you may be the op. Like, I don't know what you're arguing for there. Hey, this is going to be a much bigger thing to discuss over at Civil War, but let's keep to the other parts of this movie. Like you were mentioning, the way that it's told, I think may be the only issue I have against it for the story. I feel like when you have the John Wicks, you begin the movie and you follow him through point A to point B. And it's a lot of people speaking on him. Sadly, he doesn't have that because he's beginning. So they do this mystery element where, you see stuff with his hands and he's trying to get work as this like courier, whatever it is that he could be. And you learn more about him as the movie goes on in flashbacks. And I wish we got that a little bit earlier because I didn't want to wait for those things. I wish we had that already from the jump. But again, he's a new character, so you don't have that. They're building up to this like really big visual reveal. But I feel that visual reveal is also kind of retreading stuff that you already knew happened in his childhood until they give you a little gut punch. That's my only little nitpick right there for the story.
Yeah, I mean, Amanda, when we talked about this movie back at South by Southwest, hinted at feeling like the middle of the movie, there's kind of a lull. And I think the middle, you get into some of those flashbacks, and it does sort of halt the momentum of the movie, because otherwise, this movie is propulsive. Like, it really, really goes. So I think kind of bogging you down in those flashback moments does sort of... It doesn't give you a smooth journey with this character as you potentially could have had. With John Wick, we get his origin at the start, and then we get, thrown into all the action.
I know they were going to mention him.
Yeah, is this the first John Wick influenced movie to name drop John Wick?
Right, like through and through. You got a dog in the movie?
Yeah.
I don't get to see what happens to the dog at the end, though. So,
True.
Come on now. John Wick would have told me what happened. Which, I guess for the first one, wasn't that great, but
yeah, it wears its influences on its sleeve. I mean, I now that you've seen it, you can really see. I mean, there is that kind of like ascent through the floors, the way the raid kind of takes you, floor by floor. I feel like there's this like animalistic quality to the way that Dev fights. Obviously, Monkey Man, that really reminded me of Old Boy, like particularly how deranged he kind of gets, and yeah.
He said it was inspired by a lot of Asian cinema. He did say a lot of Southern Asian cinema specifically. I like that you had mentioned The Raid. He had talked about a lot of, I want to say it was not Jet Li.
Bak, I know he mentioned.
Yes, and he was talking about Bruce Lee, and he was saying that I wear a lot of stuff, so while he appreciates the John Wick compliment, and obviously it's like something that's added to the movie as a joke to make things light, he's like, I like John Wick, but I am also hoping that you guys expand outside of that. And I think that's where I kind of created a bingo card where I think this is a really great directorial debut. I don't like seeing some people handicap him in like wanting to say that, this is better than, I don't think it's better than John Wick.
Yeah.
But I did a bingo card, and every time I've seen someone say flavor, this is John Wick with spice, I'm like, I don't know about that right there. The action is disgusting.
Yeah.
I think you described it. You'll know your words better, but you were like, it is a survival. Like, this isn't a guy trying to look clean. This is a guy just trying to get one last breath of air to finish this fight.
Especially, like, we had just come off of seeing Roadhouse, and the fighting in that is so much more like combat cage match sort of style. Like, they're literally doing MMA style fights for a lot of this. And you know, Gyllenhaal will take a punch to the face and kind of be unbothered by it. In Monkey Man, you get Dev Patel just sort of like desperately clinging to things, like throwing his arms around wildly, using his mouth to inflict damage if he can. Like, it's just, there's like, it's like
that was
Jackie.
the scene, right?
Yes, that was the scene. We had alluded to a particularly
they have that in
brutal
the trailer,
kill.
dude.
I know. I was so disappointed to see that.
You were saying Jackie Chan, though. Go off Jackie Chan, please.
Yeah, no, he fights a little bit like Jackie Chan on bath salts in this movie.
That kitchen scene where he's just, what Jackie Chan used to do, get anything.
Yeah.
Anything around you just to fight is definitely there. Like you were saying, he gets punched in the movie, you feel it. And I think it's very gritty. If you're comparing it to the camera work that those other movies like Roadhouse had, this is like, this is barely getting some shots at some points. And that is effective, and it's also a critique that I have. I liked it. It makes it feel gritty. Did you notice the jump cuts? He would do that like old boy thing, and like right before he would like do a punch, in the movement of it, it was like a jump cut to the other scene. I know you were at the Q&A, so I don't know if he had mentioned some other stuff, but that he had broken his hand, he had broken his foot. That
he got an eye infection.
What was the thing with the crew having shirts of his X-ray? You heard about that?
Yeah, I think they had made shirts for the X-ray picture that he took with his hand. I mean, he went through it to get this movie made.
I love the commitment, but damn, what do they say about sports players? If you're hurt, wait, or you won't play again, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that really works in terms of big budget filmmaking, if the budget's still going to be there.
Get an action guy, bro. I don't know. I was like, yeah, it looks like it hurts because I can tell it hurts.
Was there a particular scene or sequence that made you feel most alive?
I liked the kitchen sequence. Since I first had seen the clip to it, I thought it worked very well. Okay. Needle dropping Jid.
I knew you'd appreciate that.
I was not expecting it. It caught me. I had such hard whiplash. I was like, what is going on? I was like, wait, did he sample an actual Indian song? And then I realized, no, it's Dev Patel using like his workout playlist in this movie. It was a little jarring to me. I'm both complimenting it because I love the playlist, but I was like, is this your character's playlist? Or is this your playlist? Because it's eclectic. You go from Jid to some like metal or some rock, some different stuff, but look, it caught me off guard, but I can't complain on a Jid. What was it, 151 Rum? And then the scene is specifically showcasing how this man has the underground set. If he's going to do a heist, he's not even involved. He's letting so many little birds do it for him. All these people on the street as it comes to him. That was probably one of the best directed sequences that he had. Easily.
Totally.
It was beautiful. And it showcased the city very well.
Yeah, I honestly wished we had a little bit more of that, just because it has this really cool scope to it too. Like we're seeing like 30 different characters in a minute or something like that. I love that moment. I also really love the training montage moment with the guy playing the tabla drum and him punching the punching bag. It just like has this rhythm to it. It really, I don't know. I think it really gets the hype going. Really sees you on,
especially the sandbag.
Get his journey. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's so good.
And even in that sequence, to connect what you're saying, when he gets there to that temple, that's outside of the region. His history was, land that was considered holy, and that's why they were taking it away from them. And a movie that's dealing a lot with India's regions and is very influential. Like, this is a mainstream American movie, right? Like, we're not watching a foreign film. It takes place elsewhere, but you need Americans to understand the locations of, I agree with you, of India. People don't know where the towns are. Like, we barely even know our American maps in 50 states if you ask most Americans. I think that it would have worked to have been like, okay, now he's this far out when he's over there training. Because they even say that group is like shunned from society. It's a very smart movie. They have points where you'll hear on the radio that they're talking about, a trans community that has kind of been shunned because this new politician doesn't really like them. There are other points where he does like the, my name is Bobby. And the movie goes, because the cleaner's Bobby. Yeah, I'm like, no, I got it. Then they show it to you. The next scene is like, it's still Bobby. That's where he got it from. You remember that P. Tier Griffin scene from Family Guy? Where he needs to come up with another name. That's all first-time directing bits there.
Right.
He's got it, and with time, I think it's going to get even better. But I think exploring the geography would have been cool, especially in that scene for the training stuff, because I've seen a lot of people love that. And I think that's where we get our Americanness inspired to it, because they're trans characters, and a lot of people are calling them trans women. But in India, they are what would be a third gender.
Right.
They are trans people, but I see a lot of people like wanting to apply our American values to it, and I'm going, hey,
Right.
hey. It's like calling a Latino movie like, yeah, these Mexicans, they were Puerto Rican, my G. Like, there is still like, nuances.
Yeah, you know, like we have, like our indigenous communities here have like, what is it, one spirit?
Two spirit. Thank you.
Two spirit. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for getting that. And I feel like we're trying, like I'm saying, we're trying to praise this movie and going like, this is for the little brown boys. No, it's rated R.
Well, hold on. Just speaking about Dev Patel, though, you mentioned like you like his vision, that you can see improvement for it. Does this movie make you more excited for Dev Patel, the filmmaker, or whatever new phase of Dev Patel, the movie star, this could potentially unlock? Because like my mind goes to, he could be James Bond after something like this.
He's suave. He was sexy. I'm gonna still give the abs to my boy Jakey. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
but it was impressive.
He's ripped.
Yeah. Both, because what's the other action movie he's done? This man came in, and we were talking about that. To go straight to action means, all right, I can do everything else. I'm an action star. I'm going to go do drama. What are you going to do? You saw how I punch. I'm going to do comedy. I've already done it. That was awesome. And like I'm telling you, my favorite part was, this isn't just all sock 'em up, beat 'em ups. He has a visual style to it. And I'm like, wow, you have a lot of juice going for you. I think we had a comment earlier, probably, yeah. Josh had said, did you think Monkey Man was more experimental than you thought it was going to be? I did, but preferred it. I wouldn't call it experimental. It's just the way he sees it. I cut up my videos a certain way. It's not really experimental. It's just my viewpoint.
Right.
That, like you were saying, it feels like a parable because that's the stories he grew up on. That is normal to him. It is now entering this mainstream where we're used to the John Wicks. But if he was telling a John Wick, this is how he would tell it. It wouldn't be experimental to him. It's like when people called Atlanta weird. It's not weird. You just don't get it. That's how that world works there.
Yeah.
I like his point of view. He's going to add a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely like a post-Wick movie. Like it's a movie that its sense of timing, its sense of violence is all really influenced by all the films that came before it, and is trying to look forward in a sense. I don't know if it's like goes to the heights of all those movies. I personally really had a great time with it. I thought it was pretty great. How good did you think Monkey Man is? Is this like a low-level classic, or is just a good time at the movies for you?
No, I think it's a solid movie. I don't think it's up there with the John Wicks of the world. But I do think that as a directorial debut, and again, because it's coming at this angle that a lot of people haven't seen, it's refreshing for a lot of people.
Totally.
Because they haven't been able to see a protagonist like this. And again, the way he tells a story is really interesting. I think he's going to get even better. I know that Jordan Peele saw something in him, and this is going to be a movie that's going to stick around. I'm very disappointed that this was like the lowest box office weekend this year so far. Like, none of the new releases could even top it. But when this comes out in theaters and people get to, VOD, and people get to like share some of the sequences and we get to learn more about the behind the scenes, I think it's going to be a banger for a lot. So I wasn't like completely blown away that it might make my top 5, but this is one of the best action movies of the year. I'm very curious to see how Fall Guy compares to it. I like that we're getting such different things. I like that it's not yet another boom, 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 boom. Roadhouse was very different in good and bad ways. This was a very unique experience. Curious what Fall Guy has and all the other stuff that we have in store. But shout out Dev Patel. I know he had a minute like that, and he was devoted. I'll give him that.
Yeah, man. That's really the joy of seeing this movie, is how much he put into it, and he's really puts himself on the line. I don't know. As somebody who's liked him a lot as an actor, it's just really cool to see him unlock this new side to him. The filmmaking is pretty electric, even if there are moments that I maybe think don't work perfectly. But
that's fine, right?
Yeah,
that's fine. It's his debut.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's absolutely going to be one of the best action movies we get this year. I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. I had a really good time with it.
What's the guy, the funny guy?
Oh shoot, yeah.
It has to be
I
Alfonso.
know you're talking
right?
about the short
It
guy.
has to be Alfonso. At a certain point, I was like, all right, let's go. You're giving me characters that I actually mess with, that I like. What do you call this card? Nicki Minaj?
Yeah.
She got a bumper. They had a good back and forth. When the movie really starts going for me is when they start like working with each other, and that back and forth that they have. I was like, okay, I wanted more of that. But overall, pretty solid. Also,
Monkey Man 2, maybe.
I don't want that man dying, bro. I don't know. He gonna be at the press run.
Full body
messed up.
cast.
Oh my gosh, that would be funny. That'd be a good rollout. But dude, what a flex! How late this iconic shot happens in the movie? Mm-hmm. Okay, I see you, Dev Patel.
Yeah, I loved how it was shot. All the like red soaked lighting. We shouted out Sharon Mayer, the cinematographer, in our last review, but one more here because it looks awesome.
I was like, yeah, they're definitely deep in there. And Silent Night wasn't the best one. Good work from him, too, in terms of an action movie. So, Monkey Man, I think you're still giving it that full 4 stars, combo price for people to see it in theaters. I saw it in Dolby, and I was surprised that the music was probably the best mixed part of it, even over the punches. He really had those needle drops hit. So, shout out Monkey Man in theaters right now. Go give it a watch.